Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a very successful guest for you today, Gino Barbaro. And he's going to talk to us all about the all around entrepreneur. He's been very successful financially, achieving financial freedom through real estate. We'll talk about passive and all of the different deals that he's done, the learnings. He's also going to talk about building a successful family, business, and all around very positive conversation. So I'm happy to welcome Gino to the show. Welcome, Gino.
Dr. Christopher, thanks for having me on, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I love this show, and we keep it very informal. So all my friends call me Chris, and talk about you. Very briefly. 1, 2 minutes, what you do, how you got there, and how the audience can benefit from your expertise today.
Absolutely. First of all, the definition of an entrepreneur for me is somebody who's made enough money to pay for his or her mistakes. And I absolutely qualify for that because I've made a ton of mistakes. And I don't know anybody who's been successful in business or their career without making a ton of mistakes. Unfortunately, for entrepreneurs, it's usually skin in the game or money's involved. If you're working for somebody, you make mistakes, you're losing your boss's money. I unfortunately have lost a lot of my own money. So I am super qualified to talk about the topic. Now, for me, right now, I currently have 6 children. We homeschool our kids. I've been blessed to be married to an amazing woman who's allowed me to really, I guess, excel in what I do. I'm a real estate investor. We own 1,700 apartment units, and they're not syndicated. These are deals that me, my business partner Jake, and my partner Mike own outright with no investors. We had investors at one point. We were able to sell out of it and own them ourselves. But I started out with humble beginnings. I started out with a small restaurant up in New York over 20 years ago. It was a beautiful life. I have to be honest. I loved the restaurant business. I worked with my father. I worked with my brother, my mother. I loved it until 2007 when my dad passed away. And when he passed away, I had to ask myself, am I living my dream or am I living his dream? And I think if I was honest with myself, it was a little bit of his dream, although I loved it because I was with him every day. He was in the kitchen with me working. 2008 comes and there's a seismic shift, not only in my life, but in the country. And I realized that I couldn't support my kids. I couldn't support my kids with what I was doing. I read T. Harv Eker's book, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which to me changed everything because I was the victim. I was blaming everybody. I was blaming the economy. I was blaming Bush. When in reality, your fruits are in your roots. That's what T. Harv Eker says. And that resounded with me because my fruits weren't showing because I had very shallow and pretty much non-existent roots. And what I mean by that is I didn't have value. I wasn't able to bring value to the marketplace, and I didn't have value to be able to create money or financial freedom. That's when I met Jake in 2009, and I decided, let me go out and learn this multifamily thing because I really loved real estate. I invested in mentorships. Me and Jake partnered up in 2011 when he moved down to Knoxville. He was a pharmaceutical rep, taking food orders out of the restaurant and bringing them to doctor's offices. He was selling pharmaceuticals at the time. So that's why we nickname ourselves the pizza guy and the drug rep. We found the deal in 2013 after 18 months, and I guess the rest is history. But that's just a short synopsis. I mean, it's amazing when I look back, being the pizza guy, loving that, and then not loving that, having a lot of pain around that, and just trying to find the solution. And I was fortunate to meet Jake and to jump into real estate.
Yeah. What's interesting is because real estate is one of those tried and true investments, and a lot of the audience are familiar with it. And so my question for you is, what are your thoughts on the real estate industry? I know it's going through some it's challenges, and how should people be viewing real estate? How should they be positioning themselves? I know different, like there's sectors within the real estate industry that are struggling while some are doing well.
Chris, before I met Jake, I always call it life before Jake and life after Jake. Life before Jake, for me as a real estate investor, was really challenging. I didn't have a map. I didn't have a process. I didn't have a system. And I'd done one really good deal by myself, followed by a couple of really bad deals. And I just didn't understand real estate investing. I didn't understand that investing in real estate is like building a business. I didn't get the entrepreneurial aspect of it. When I met Jake, we started really looking at these deals from our framework of buy right, manage right, and finance right. And we've used that over the last dozen years to acquire over 2,200 units. Our community, Jake and Gino, our students have closed over 81,000 units. They've raised over $450 million using this framework. And when you say like the economy and the marketplace where it is now, we have 3 deals on the contract right now. We're closing about $30 million worth of assets in the next 90 days. And most people are heading for the exits when I think right now is the opportunity. Shut off the noise. Interest rates are where they are. If you're going to invest in a deal, the cost of capital is high for Jake, for Gino, and for Chris, for all the same. You just have to, as far as real estate, you have to be in it for the long term. You have to create relationships. Deals aren't going to find you. You've got to go out and find deals. So now is the time, only because right now things are a little slow. Real estate brokers are hungry. Whereas a year or two ago, I was calling Chris up on the phone. Chris, you got any deals? Chris wasn't even picking up the phone. He was too busy. But now Chris has got a little bit of time, and Chris wants to build a relationship with new buyers. That's what's going on right now. So I am wholly optimistic right now of the long-term ramifications of real estate. And I said long-term. If you're in this for 6 months and it doesn't work, you've got the shiny object syndrome. I had that. I was jumping from mobile home parks to strip centers, to single family. I was even looking at self-storage. When I decided to become an expert and really get really good at one niche, pick one. And I'll finish this off by saying in the last couple of years in 21 and 22, we didn't have a lot of deals. There weren't a lot of deals in multifamily. We could have jumped to RV parks or to something else. We decided, let's hold off. Let's stay what we're really good at. We can work in the business of real estate right now and work on our systems and work on our property management. And that's what we did. And in 2023, last year, we closed on 300 units. And this year, we're going to close on a little over 200 units. So for me, I think taking a long-term aspect of it, picking a niche and committing to it, I think you'll be okay in real estate.
Yeah. Real estate is, for the long term. So you mentioned this systems and process and basically playing by the, by the rule book. What's that 3-step framework that you and your partner Jake teach to the students to achieve success?
One day, Jake is in his garage and he sees a wheelbarrow and it's tilted over. And he's like, wow, investing is a 3-step framework. The wheelbarrow's got 2 back legs. It's the buy right and the finance right. They're both fixed. Once they're done, that's it. They're done. The wheel is the manage right, is the wheel. It's in constant motion. And if you look at any investment you make from that lens, you need to buy the asset properly and you need to finance the asset properly. Once those are done, they're off the table. You just need to continue the operations. And if you're looking to buy a business, it's the same thing. You need to buy it right, whether you're financing with SBA or whether you're looking to get, seller financing or go to community bank, you need to finance it right. But once that's done, that's all we talk about. That's fun. You bought it, you got it done. But now the hard work starts, which is the manage right portion of the framework. And, when I was buying these deals, I wasn't thinking about operations. And this is to say that you have to do it yourself? No, you can go out and hire a third party, but you still have to asset manage the property and you still have to manage the manager. And I think that's where a lot of groups and a lot of people fall out of alignment. They think they're going to buy a real estate deal and walk away. I've got 6 kids. Every child needs to be raised. I can't have the child and walk away. If I want to have a successful child and a successful family, I need to put work into it. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. I mean, real estate can be one of the most lucrative ventures because it's twofold in my estimation. You're building a business, you're building something that's scalable, it's an investment, and the tax savings are incredible. So you lump all of that together. It's a hedge against inflation. 5 years from now, if your renting is $1,500 today, 5 years from now, it's probably going to be $1,800 or $1,900. So there's a hedge against inflation aspect. It's a basic human need. I always say food, clothing, and apartments. That's what we need. Food, clothing, and shelter, right? It's not going to go away. You had said some of the troubles that we're having in real estate. Office space is going to have its issues. In certain markets, it may not come back because people are, working from home. So if there's a saturation of office, that may be challenging. Self-storage, I think it's a great niche in certain markets, but when you go into a recession, are people going to pay for their self-storage units? RV parks is where I'm trying to have a struggle. I don't know during COVID if people just enjoyed going out and buying RVs, jumping in them. I mean, after a while, there's a lot of people like, I don't want to drive this thing anymore. I don't want to pay 200 grand for this toy. And what am I going to do with it? And if you go out RVing, it's not cheap. It's something that I'm trying to understand is that a niche? Is that a fad? Or is that something going forward? So for me, I've stayed multifamily. I love the aspect that there's not enough affordable housing in this country, and it is a basic human need.
Interesting. What the other thing I think you what there's this proliferation of, because now with AI, with artificial intelligence, you need servers. I heard, data.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
That's a great point. So there's another niche in real estate, which is flex industrial. The flex, I'm not even talking about the data centers. That's something maybe for the bigger players. But if you're out there and you're in certain markets, especially in the Midwest, where a lot of this manufacturing had to come back from China, and they're coming back and they're getting this flex space where you're renting out 3,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet, and it works really well. And even if you want to have a type of office, but not paid worth for 20,000 square feet, these flex spaces are really, they're flexible. So you can chunk them down, and they're doing phenomenal. Look at industrial. Industrial is really, to me, has had a resurgence in this economy, because I think we've realized the supply chain issues that we had during COVID. Well, if we bring a lot of that back to the country here, you're going to have a lot less of those issues. And I think Mexico has actually overtaken China as the number one trade partner. So you're seeing that going on from the continent, but there's a lot of that popping up right now in the United States as well.
Yeah, very interesting. Mexico, I heard Mexico is doing very well. So kind of looking, a lot of audience are listening, and either they're, experienced real estate professionals. Now you do passive as well. But people are interested in, multifamily. What advice do you have for someone looking to buy their first multifamily property? Obviously, in this time, it may be challenging, but we're just curious.
If you're starting out to invest in real estate, I think you need to be what we call selfish. We don't like to hear that word, but I think sometimes it's actually good to be selfish. You need to understand what your goals are. Why are you getting into real estate? I mean, is it just because Chris is your friend and he told you real estate's great? And then ultimately, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish in real estate? Do you want to become a full-time real estate investor? Do you want to supplement your income? Do you want to build another business? Think of it and think of what your goals are. Do you want to do it passively? If you're a doctor and you're working 80 hours a week, can you actually go out and buy a duplex and do that at the same time as, doing your job? That may be challenging. So the first step, what are you trying to accomplish? Now, if you want to do this, what Jake and I did, as far as, going out and trying to do something on the side, we would call a side hustle. Back then it was called another job. Now they've got great marketing for everything. I had a side hustle years ago. Who knew? So if you want to do a side hustle, my first really bit of advice would be to educate yourself. I mean, take some massive education. Go on, listen to podcasts. I love Bigger Pockets. I've read literally hundreds of books on investing and real estate. Understand the real estate space. The next thing that I did is I invested in my mentorship. I invested in education. I spent money with mentors because, success leaves clues. I was out there in the wilderness for years by myself, and I was making huge mistakes. You're either going to learn on the street or you're going to learn in the classroom. I learned on the street all those years. It cost too much, and I wasted too much of my time. Once I understood, hey, you know what? I need to learn. I went out and I signed up with a couple of mentorship groups, which to me was amazing, because right after I did that, I met Jake. And I was able to provide value for Jake. So when Jake showed up and goes, I'm moving to Knoxville, he knew nothing about real estate. I was the person driving the ship, but he had the boots on the ground. So you really need to actually invest in your education, understand what niche. And that's the next part. Just pick a niche of real estate. If you want to start with single family homes, great. If you want to start with multifamily, great. Self-storage, RV parks, just pick one niche and don't jump. Give yourself some time to learn about that space. After you've done that and you're in multifamily, you've got the education, the next step would really be pick a market. Select one market and really learn all about that market. It may be in your backyard. It may be 5 hours away. Pick something that's relatively close, that if you need to jump on a plane, you don't have to go across country, that you can get to. I think those are some of the steps I would take early on, but understanding what you're trying to accomplish in real estate is first and foremost the most important thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I know, because you talked about mastermind and mentorship, and I know you have students and you've launched a program. So, we have around 7 minutes left. Talk about the value of mentorship and how the audience can benefit from that.
For me, life. I forgot Bruce Lee's quote. Is it something to the effect of, your cup is always better empty, the emptiness of a cup, right? If you think you know it all and there's no room for growth, then your life is pretty much stagnant. You're either growing or you're regressing. I didn't stop with that second and third mentorship before I met Jake. I've continued along the path of continuous and constant learning, because when I had 500 units, I didn't know how to scale a company. We had never done that before. I had one restaurant, never had the opportunity. So we invested in Traction by Gino Wickman, and we invested in a company called Scaling Up with Vern Harnish. I'd never done any of those. Were they investments significant? They were very significant investments in capital, and not only in capital, but time also. But they paid. It was like I can't explain to you how much we learned from it. We created our core values. We created our cadences of accountabilities. We created our mission statement. We created culture within the organization. These are things that we are not taught. And if I had not gone through this education, we wouldn't have been able to scale from 500 units to over 1,700 units. For us and for myself, one of our core values is growth mindset. So I want to be continuous in constant, growth mode. And you'd mentioned one of the programs where we've created something for passive investors. It's called Passive Investor Pro, because I think right now, a lot of limited partners lost money investing in real estate. And I was there in 2005, my very first passive deal. I lost $172,000, and I was really upset, really mad at the sponsor. When I look back at it 6 months later, I said, you know what? The sponsor's at fault. Yeah, he put me in a bad deal. But did the sponsor put a gun to my head and tell me I had to invest in the deal? No, that was of my own free volition. And I made so many mistakes of not vetting the sponsor, not understanding what my interests were. Gino, I could have just gotten on a plane and flown down to the property, looked at the property, and I would have said, I'm not investing with this gentleman. I just didn't understand. So Passive Investor Pro, the program we're talking about, teaches limited partners, passive investors, how to invest passively in real estate. Because what my goal is to teach a passive investor to invest in real estate as if they were active. But then once they've got that foundation, once they know what they're looking for, the sponsor, the alignment of interests, and the deal, that's the 3-step framework on that. The deal is always the last one. You always hear passive investors, myself included, I need a deal. I've got 50 grand. Where's the next deal? No. As a passive investor, the first thing you should be saying, I've got 50 grand. Where's the next sponsor? Where's that jockey, as we like to say? Who is that jockey that I need to hire to actually be a steward of my money? Now, once I find that jockey, do our interests align? My sponsor early on, he had no money in the game. He had no money in the deal. I had all the skin in the game. So when the deal went bad, guess what? He walked away. He didn't lose anything. Our interests didn't align, right? That's important. And I think if you can align interests and you get the sponsor, the last part is the deal. Let's look at the deal now. So I think, empowering limited partners is on my part a selfish aspect as well, because if I can get strong limited partners and you have all of these deals out here that aren't any good, we're not going to be investing in these deals. The prices of these deals come down and all of a sudden there's equilibrium back in the market. So that's what I'm hoping to, promote with this Passive Investor Pro. We need strong limited partners. I don't want limited partners to blame general partners for bad deals. I want limited partners to go in eyes open and say, this is a good deal, but I've got some questions, and I want to teach these limited partners the questions they need to ask to be able to protect their investments.
I love that. And to round it out, you've have a successful business and a career, and you're giving back to the community. Talk about, what's it all about? Because I know you balance family and business, great marriage, great family, and ultimately, end on an inspiring note for the audience.
It's interesting, Chris. When I was at the restaurant and I was working week to week, at the end of the week, I'd make money. I'd want to be able to donate time. I want to be able to donate my efforts. And it seemed like every time it was a struggle. And when I became financially free, all of a sudden I stopped worrying about money as much. And I stopped focusing on money. And I started focusing on opportunity. And I started focusing on helping others. And then all of a sudden I realized that the more I did that, the happier it gave to me, the more joy that came into my life, and the more money I ended up making. So it was very ironic, the irony of being a small business owner or a W-2 worker, focusing just on yourself, right? Which you need to do that. You need to do that. Once I became financially free, I found the joy in my life, and I think the joy in most of our lives is when we can help and we can impact others. And that's what financial freedom has taught me. And I always say people with financial intelligence can change the world for the better. I'm writing a book right now that's called Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy. Now, can money bring happiness? I think in certain aspects it can. Money can bring experiences in your life that can bring happiness. Money can really, as you're living a life full of stress and worrying about paying the bills, if you've got money that can alleviate some of that stress, you can focus on other things in life. You can focus on helping others and creating impact. Doesn't that bring happiness to your life? I don't know if it's the money that's bringing the happiness, but it's the opportunity and the choices that money, I guess, allows and brings into your life. So don't focus just on the money. If you're listening to this, focus on the opportunity, focus on the value that you're able to provide to others. And if you do that, I promise the money will follow.
Yeah, I love that. How can people find you and follow you and reach out to you?
Thanks for that, Chris. Just go to jakeandgino.com. We have everything on there. I've got 4 weekly podcasts. I've got books that we're writing. There's articles on the website. Just go to jakeandgino.com.
Yeah, I love that. Audience, very inspiring and motivating podcast and speaker. Be sure to give Gino's socials a like and follow. Check out his all these resources will be in the links and show notes. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me.